This week I got to talk with Olesya Salnikova Gilmore about her new gothic historical suspense novel, The Fortune Tellers of Rue Daru. If you love your suspense and you also love it when it's in a historical context, you are going to love this one. This is what it's about. Spirited 20-something Zina and her secretive grandmother, Baba Valya, own a tea room on Rue Daru in Paris, where they have lived quietly since Zina's mother's untimely death. By day, the women serve tea, mostly to members of the bustling Russian immigrant community, but when dusk falls, they divine fortunes and perform seances for their loyal clientele. Then the charming Princess Olga and her brother arrive, searching for answers about the disappearance of their father, the Grand Duke, cousin to the murdered last Tsar of Russia. Zina, eager to learn more about the spirit world and her powers, performs the seance. She is able to summon the Grand Duke, but to her horror, he starts to haunt the shop, and he seems to know something sinister about her mother's death. As Zina delves into her family's hidden past, dark secrets are unearthed, threatening Zina and her grandmother's found family, home, and tea room, not to mention their very lives. I also think that if you love Russian history, if you love Parisian history or French history, you will also love this book a lot. But really, if you just love gothic suspense with seances and spirits, you are just gonna want to read this one. But now, let's hear from Olesya. Well, I am so excited to talk about The Fortune Tellers of Rue Daru, which I keep pronouncing or like mixing up those last two at the end, so that's why I said it so specifically.
It's totally fine because people are like, oh, I know some French. I think they say that to just kind of be like, oh, so do you, right? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm really, really bad at French if my husband's right. I'm like really bad at French. So you're fine.
Yeah. I don't know any. I am working on my Spanish,
Nothing.
but I don't.
Bonjour.
I definitely don't know French.
I mean, what I put in there, my mother-in-law looked at, so.
Oh, nice. Well, before we get into the book itself, I do always want to get to know a little bit about you. So, what was your journey to writing like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, it was not a simple journey because I started my first book right out of college, and I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to finish it. I didn't know how to structure a book properly. And so I just kind of left it at, I think, 150 pages and went to law school. So went to law school, practiced law at a big law firm in Chicago, and I just realized I didn't love it. It wasn't a good fit for me. And my husband actually at the time, my husband now, and at the time he told me, he said, you know, you're so unhappy. Why don't you write? I mean, you've always wanted to write. I was an English major. I've always wanted to write a book.
What a good man.
Yeah. And he encouraged me to write. And if he hadn't encouraged me, I don't know if I ever would have had the guts to start, and I had very little time. I'd work, 70, 80-hour weeks.
Right.
And it did make me happy. He was right. It was the one thing I looked forward to on the weekends, sometimes evenings, even lunch breaks. I remember I would sneak in and write a little bit. And but the journey itself was long, right? Because I actually left my job because of just health issues that I started having as a result. And I had some savings, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this publishing thing, this writing thing. And it took me a couple books to get published. But I'm still living and trying the writing thing, the publishing thing. So hopefully I'll keep doing it.
That is a really, that's an inspirational story. I know some people like it. It's nice to get to a point where your other career, essentially, like you're saying, you had savings, allows you to write, because I feel like it just takes so much creative brain space. So that's really cool.
I think so too, and I think it's the support network around you. I never underestimate it, because if not for my husband, providing that initial push of being like, you know what, you can do this. I know you, and you're unhappy, and I want you to be happy, and I want you to do something that you really love and are passionate about. And I've always been passionate about writing and books. And my mom too, I can't, she stays with my kids right now when I'm writing. And it's just such a huge help to me, my parents in general, and my in-laws as well. I mean, it's a whole community. It really does take a village when writers say that.
Yeah. So what did your writing process kind of develop into, which is kind of the like, are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Like, or is it different for you every book?
I think I'm a plantser. Is that the right way to say that?
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, so I'm a mix of the two, definitely. I start with being a plotter. So that first book I was telling you about, the one I started right after college, I just, just wrote. I had no concept of what a story even looked like. And for me, that just didn't work, just because I couldn't finish it. I didn't see a way forward for the story. And so ever since the second book I wrote, which never saw the light of day either, but it was the first book that I plotted. And for me, having a plot, having a structure, having that kind of pitch for the book, which I kind of learned when I was querying literary agents. And now I use a pitch as it's invaluable to me in understanding what my idea is and can I sell it to my agent. Right. And so that to me is an important process, as well as writing kind of the synopsis, the summary for the story, thinking through my characters. And it's a really long process for me, which kind of starts with some noodling, some idea generation. It takes months to just think about the story and kind of think about what I want it to be. And of course the characters too. What the characters, what are they going to be like? What direction do I want to take? What direction are they taking themselves in? And so all that I think takes a lot of time and thinking before I even put pen to paper. But I'm very much a proponent of planning and having that structure planned out. And then once I start writing, I'm very much a pantser. I mean, it's wild, right? To think about, because it's all plotted, right? Just follow it. And I never, ever do. And it starts to deviate about page 100 in every book, where I rewrite the first 100 pages. And I actually saw an interview with a famous author, the writer of Circe, if you've ever read that. And she actually talked about that too, where she essentially rewrites the first 150 pages. So it's kind of my process, I guess. And then after that, I sometimes follow the outline that I have for me. I do like a loose chapter by chapter outline, couple sentences each. But a lot of times it changes because the story and the characters grow and change, and I get to know them. And so, so some things I follow, and some things I'm like, this is taking too long. I'm going to expedite this. I'm going to cut these couple of chapters, and we're just going to meet the characters here instead of here. And so it's just it's a very alive process, which for me, I need, because I need the surprise in order to keep being interested in what I'm writing.
That's what I have heard people say, that where they're like, if I don't surprise myself a little bit while I'm writing, like, it's just not going to be as fun for me, or they kind of feel like that's what helps the readers be surprised too, is them not knowing where they're headed with it. So I think it's so fascinating, all the different ways you can approach it.
I really do. And I think like marrying the two concepts, for me, I finally understood, okay, this is my process. This is okay. Because I really thought it at first. I know. Did.
I've heard people too who are true like pantsers, in the sense that it's like follow their heart from the beginning, and there's like all this like shame around it sometimes for people where they're like, I should plot, and I'm like, if you're finishing a book, like there's no should about it, like do what you want to do. I feel like it's almost like the whole like, this may be a strange comparison, but like morning people and night owls or whatever. Like there's nothing like inherently better about waking up in the morning, but like we act like maybe there is, but
Yeah,
there's really not. So
absolutely.
I think it's
Absolutely.
whatever works for you, whatever helps you like finish a book, which is like something a lot of people never do, then I think you just go with what works for you.
I agree. And to also be comfortable with your
Mhm.
process and to
Mhm.
accept it. Because I think it took a lot of frustration on my part. Oh, why do I have to rewrite these first 100 pages? Like, I'm wasting
Yeah.
so much time. And now I'm realizing it's not time wasting, it's just my
Yes.
process. I'm getting to know the story, I'm getting to know the characters. It's not
Hmm.
time wasting. And once I was
Yeah.
able to accept that, I actually am just much more at peace,
That makes
if
a
that
lot of
makes
sense.
sense.
It's kind of like not buying into like it's almost like a capitalist idea or like feeling that like it's wasted if it's not the final thing, but
Yeah,
like actually like you're saying that you don't have to have like a complete thing for it to have been
it's true.
worthwhile.
It's true. So much goes into the creative process, especially in the
Hmm.
beginning. And so everything counts, everything.
Yeah,
That's what I
that
tell
makes
myself.
I think clearly it's true for you. I did see, so you write all kinds of genres. You write fantasy, you do the historical fiction element. I think you're drawn to the gothic as well.
Yes.
So what about those genres kind of like intrigue you?
Well, I really like dark genres, if that makes sense. I
Yes.
love just, I mean, I think that's the fiction that I started reading, right? I think
Mhm.
we all write books that one that we read and one that we want to see out in the world more of. And
Mhm.
so I mean, I've always loved historical. It was one of my first loves. I mean, I just remember Philippa Gregory, the other Boleyn girl, the
Yeah.
Tudors. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the stuff I started with, and that's the stuff that drew me in to reading and especially reading in English too,
Yeah.
because I started with Russian
Yeah.
when I came to the States, and so historical fiction really really drew me in because
Mhm.
I love visiting a different world. I love, like, even now if I'm looking at fiction, I want something different than what I know,
Mm.
because, well, what I know, and we're surrounded by depressing news,
Mhm.
just sad,
Just
sad
that. Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And I just need to immerse myself in something else. And that's usually a different time and place.
Mm.
I love books that, take place in other countries and other time periods.
Yeah.
And I love the Gothic too, because I think it does two things, I think, which is it makes us face our fears
Yeah.
in a totally isolated way,
Mhm.
and it also is able to get at some things that are really important to us as modern people in
Mhm.
contemporary times, and to really comment on them without repercussion. You know what I mean? To just
Right.
do
It's abstract.
whatever, and to really make that comment about mortality, about the world we live in,
Yeah.
about women,
Yes.
and their rights and powers and all of that. And so I think all of these genres really do that, and I that's why I love the mix of the Gothic next to historical, next to
Mhm.
magic fantasy,
Yeah.
because it's just a really natural, and I love setting them in the real world
Mhm.
because it's just closer to me. I mean, I love some
Yeah.
high fantasy, but to me, it's just like it doesn't touch me in the same way as these books set in the real world, because that's what we know, right? It just seems much
Mhm.
more real and tangible to me, and so I
Yeah.
think that's why I set them in the real world too. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I love mixing genres. Like I love
Yes.
that kind of mix of things that
Yeah.
is just so fascinating to me. So
I feel like it keeps it, even especially as a reader, it like keeps it very interesting when there are multiple genre tropes even happening. It almost adds to the suspense of it, even if it's not necessarily suspense, which
yeah,
this one definitely has
yeah,
suspense, but
yeah. No, and I love, yeah,
that's
the
where readers are
suspense
like,
element is a lot of fun.
yeah.
The mystery and suspense element is really fun with those
Hmm.
genres, and so
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I found that in this book. I had a little bit of that in my second book, but but I definitely like made a home in it in this book.
Yeah.
And I was looking up actually, I just read Saltwater. I don't know if you've heard of that one. It's by Katie Hayes. It's
Oh, Saltwater. Yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's not fantasy. It's actually like mystery thriller, but it takes place
Yes.
on Capri, and it has just a very nice family drama at its
Mhm.
center. And I love that, you know. I
Yeah.
love that added element of the family drama too. I
Yes.
like that along with, because that's what we know, right? Like all the
Right.
drama, like all my drama comes from my family. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I
And
get
so
that.
I just find it a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned, I think it might have been off air. I can't remember which part at this point. But I know you were born in Moscow, and it said
Yes.
you mostly grew up in the US, though.
Yes.
And then this book is taking place in France, but it is Russian. How do I pronounce it? Immigrant.
Emigres, yeah,
Immigrant.
emigres. Yeah, I
Okay.
think.
We'll go with
I
that.
think.
I'm like, sometimes I'm glad sometimes I'm happy when I have the audiobook, because then I'm like, okay, I do know how to say
Yes.
this word.
Yes. No, I
Um,
love audiobooks.
yeah, so there are multiple like cultural elements going on in this one.
Yes.
And can you kind of talk about, like, it sounds like some of your personal experiences might have inspired that part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess in terms of personal, that's why I think I wrote the book is,
Mhm.
fortune telling. I realized that, well, first, I didn't really explore the concept of Slavic fortune telling before
Mhm.
in my other books. And so it's like, okay, it's time. And once I
Mhm.
started looking at it, I was like, oh my God, my great aunt did this. Oh my God, my grandmother did this. I found out this rich tradition of women in my family doing fortune telling. I mean,
Wow.
who knew? And I just never associated like that, and I just never thought
Yeah.
about it like that. Oh, like it's pretty weird that my great aunt put an egg under my sister's bed so she wouldn't sleepwalk, that she read my
Right.
palm, and that I knew I'd get married, you know, to like my husband. Like it's just
Yeah.
weird. And all these things came true. It's just very
Wow.
strange, but that's like why I really wanted to write it, is I wanted to explore those traditions and practices. And so similarly, I decided to set the book in Paris specifically because, first of all, I wanted to set a book outside of Russia. My first two are set in Russia. I was kind of ready to go beyond.
Hmm.
And I love Paris. And my husband goes, yeah, well, we can go to Paris next time. If you set a book in Paris, we can go to
Ooh.
Paris, because I was begging him to go to Paris. I
I was gonna
always just
say,
stopped by, something like for one day when I was
yeah.
traveling, never really spent a lot of time. I really, really want to go to Paris. I want to explore Paris. And well, just write a book there. I'm like, done. Okay. And
Oh, I
so
did
after
it. You can
that,
write somewhere.
yes, yeah. And I discovered this community of emigres that lived in Paris. And it was really perfect because I'm an immigrant. I came over, like you said, when I was 7 years old in the States. So I grew up in the States, but I could go back and visit my grandparents, my family.
Mhm.
And so, I know this life intimately, that my characters deal with. I know the starting a business. My parents have a business.
Mhm.
So it was very close to me in many ways to talk
Mhm.
about this family of immigrants, both when they first came over, the grandmother Valia and her daughter Svetlana, and of course the granddaughter who was born and grew up in Paris. And I mostly grew up in the States, so she was very familiar to me. That kind of being surrounded by your culture, which we lived in like this town close to Chicago where there's a lot of Russian speakers, a
Oh,
lot of Russian, Belarusian, Ukrainian. I mean, all kinds of Slavic speakers there.
mhm.
And I didn't even know that, the US, what? I mean, there was Russian
Wow.
speech all around. We would go to the Russian store, we'd go to the Russian
Yeah.
music school, we'd go, so things like that. And my character really experiences that, where, her
Yes.
grandmother owns a tea room. The patrons and clients are mostly, and fortune telling clients are mostly Russian. But you live in a new place, in a new country. And that
Mhm.
was very intimately familiar to me. And it wasn't until, I started going to school and really learning English and having American friends, that I was like, oh, there's like this whole new world where
Yeah.
it's actually America. And so it was, my character Xena really experiences that kind
Yes.
of disconnect, and the feeling that I really wanted to get at, that's very important, is sometimes you don't feel like you're either culture.
Mm.
Because I feel like that all the time. And
Okay.
I go back to Russia, and I haven't been since the war started, of course, but I go back to Russia and I don't feel Russian. I'm here, I think I feel more American than ever actually now, but
Mhm.
I still feel sort of that disconnect. You don't really belong to either culture, and that can be very isolating and very difficult. And so that's why she has her best friend Katya, Katerina, that they kind of hang out and are able to really connect to each other, because they're similar age and similar situation.
Yeah. That is such a cool answer. And actually really segues well into one of my other questions, which is like Xena's story
Yes.
is she's like uncovering her own past as she tries to figure out kind of what's happening with this spirit that
Hmm.
appears in a seance. And so she's a fortune teller, but she's also someone who's like looking back and learning about herself.
Yes.
And so it sounds like a lot of that was kind of similar to your experience. So is that kind of what you went into writing? Was that like part of the idea, or did that her character's journey develop as you started like researching?
I knew I wanted it to be about family secrets,
Mm,
just because I think family secrets is such a huge part of the culture.
mm.
I mean, it's really fascinating because I read one one review that was like, well, they just keep too many secrets from each other. It's just not believable. And it's like,
I
listen,
saw that because I was just
listen,
like
listen.
researching.
Please let me tell
I'm like,
you
maybe this
about
wasn't the book for you.
Slavic peoples. So I did not know many huge, massive, life-changing secrets that my grandparents kept, that I only found out after they died.
Wow.
Um, People kept secrets starting in, I mean, throughout history. Like, we're talking about Russia, so we're talking about an extremely ultra conservative, ultra
Mhm.
policed,
Yep.
policed country. Even before Soviet times, you had, the Akhrana, you had the Tsar's, guard, that would go after anyone that was contrary to the regime, to the imperial regime.
Mhm.
You had, people had to hide everything. And you see that in a court that was, in a royal court, for example, that was very conservative.
Mhm.
um, you know, uh, they hid sexuality, they hid, I mean, affairs. I mean, everything was hidden, everything was secret. And, regular non-royal people too.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so, and then of course you have the Soviet times, and everyone, well, has heard, most people have heard, that it was an extremely difficult time. Secrets became currency.
Mm,
People traded in secrets to survive. You
mm,
would inform on your neighbors, your friends, your family members. And that's actually at issue in my previous book, The Haunting of Moscow
mhm.
House, where I really explored that concept.
Yeah.
Secrets kept you alive, they also got you in trouble. And
Mhm.
so I think this carried over because, I mean, my parents, I still don't know if they've told me everything. I mean,
Right.
my husband and I always joke, but like, we do not know anything,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because it's the culture really is. Secrets are like, whether you like it or not, whether you're doing
Right.
it, like whether you like admit that you're doing it, but maybe you're subconsciously doing it, where you're keeping
Mm,
things that maybe aren't societally like okay, or
right.
according to expectations, or maybe your view of what those expectations are. And
Mm,
especially in the 1920s, where you had a very changing, you had a changing world all over the world, right? The world was
yes.
changing after the Great War, after the First World War. And
Yeah.
so, and in Russia, especially with the Revolution and Civil War that followed. And so you're having a people that are very secretive, even with their family members. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a massive part of it. And so, yeah, I really wanted my character to find out these kind of family secrets that
Mm-hmm.
are at the core of her family, that are really coming out and really kind of like affecting her life and threatening
Mm-hmm.
it. And so
Yeah.
she, and that's the thing that will bring her and her grandmother closer, because at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning they're close, but they don't really understand each other. And
Right.
I wanted this kind of everything out in the open. I wanted them to achieve closeness through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's my goal with like maybe every book I write
Probably.
is this idea of a family and
Yeah.
family love and family reckoning, you know,
Right.
that affect the present and
Yeah.
the characters in the present.
I think it's going back to that review too. I think it's really easy, especially because you see reviews like that in all kinds of books. That's like all they had to do was
Yeah.
communicate.
Well, wouldn't that be easy for the entire world, you know,
That's
if we just communicated?
that's where I'm coming from. I think it's a lot. I think it's very easy to read a book and be like, or even nonfiction, and be like, all they had to do was like tell each other. And I'm like, there's going to be a time in that person's life where like
Yes.
they just aren't going to want to tell someone something, and it's like
It's
that's what
so
it is.
true.
It's easier said than done when it's and then what you were saying about living in really conservative societies as well.
Mhm.
Of course you have to have them, because you're talking about authoritarian regimes that are like they have random
Yeah,
rules that don't make sense, and
absolutely.
so of course there are going to be those secrets.
And when you're dealing with secrets that have to do with murder, I
Mm,
have
yeah.
not discovered such secrets in my own family, thank God. But when you're talking about murder, I mean, I'm a lawyer, right? Like, I
Mhm.
know that if you know things, that's not good. So,
Yeah.
why would her grandmother tell her anything if
Right.
there was this blight on
Yeah.
their business and
Yeah.
home, and so, you know, yeah, that was definitely from the beginning. I wanted that tension between them, where the grandmother knows much more than she realizes, but she doesn't know everything, right? And
Right.
then the granddaughter is trying to find out her family so that,
Mhm.
you know, she can kind of come to terms with where she's from, who her family truly is,
Mhm.
and how she can move on with her own life, right? Because I just feel like our family holds so many answers, not
Mhm.
only about like across generations, you know.
Mhm.
I think it holds a lot of answers about ourselves and
Yes.
sometimes how to move forward. And I mean, that's something that I'm like working on right now
Yeah.
personally, is how do I come to terms with certain decisions that my parents made, for
Mm.
example, you know? And I think that's just something that allows me to come to terms with my past
Mm.
and move on to the future that I want. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, from the beginning, I wanted that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of been talking about Xena and her grandma, and their relationship, and it is a dynamic. Obviously, you just said it's one of the dynamics that changes the most across the like story arc. But they kind of always have like a fun-ish dynamic. What was it like building out like their relationship and their dynamic?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was also very painful for me because it's definitely based on my own grandmother.
Okay.
So it's my mom's mom, and she died during COVID. So I actually never
Oh
got to see her one last time. I was actually going to see her
no.
April, and this March, you know, COVID started in March
Oh,
2020, and I was going to see her. I had tickets to see her in April,
oh,
and long story short, but then I got pregnant and I couldn't make the trip, and then I couldn't make the trip for her funeral either.
oh
So
man.
it was a lot of I would say closure that needed to be
Mm,
explored,
yeah.
and so I wanted to write, you know, at first, actually, this book was supposed to be all three generations of women. It was supposed to be the grandmother, the mother, the daughter. slash granddaughter. And I realized actually the mother, I'm very close to my mom, so it has
Mhm.
no indication of like my relationship with my mom,
Mhm.
but uh, she's at the heart of the mystery. So I wanted her to be more mysterious, right?
Mhm.
And I realized that the core of the book was really the grandmother and the granddaughter dynamic. And that's kind of where I wanted it to be,
Mhm.
because I wanted this book to be about my grandmother and about
Yeah.
my very special relationship with her. I was very close to her. I lived with her for the first few years of my life, because my parents lived with my grandparents. And so that relationship, even after we left for the States, was always just very special to me. And she was a
Mm.
spitfire. I mean, my grandmother was a spitfire.
Aw.
She was just she was spunky, she had a sense of humor, she was strong,
Yeah.
she was a doctor, so she totally knew what was what.
Mhm.
And I just always looked up to her. Like, she was beautiful, she was talented, I mean, she was everything, everything to
Yeah.
me. She cooked well, she was a great cook.
Yeah.
And so I hope I got at that kind of quirky relationship, because I feel like that was kind of, my grandmother and me. We'd kind of just
Yeah.
laugh together, and just, yeah, talk about very serious things too.
Yeah.
But that relationship definitely
Influ
sparked it and influenced it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get to see her another time, but it sounds like it was nice to at least kind of get to write a little bit about her, even though it's fiction, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, it definitely, it provided, I think, a lot of closure to me, just
Yeah.
because I kind of, it brought up a lot of memories, but really
Right.
good memories. And I realized, what, I think I was a good granddaughter, and
Yeah.
I couldn't see her the last time. And, but I
Ugh.
talked with her. We were always in contact. And,
Okay.
I think
It's
she
good.
really was happy in the end. And
Yeah.
I think that's what matters.
Oh,
And, I
yeah.
dedicated this book to her too, so I think she would be really happy. She
Yeah.
unfortunately died before I found out that my first book would be published. So,
Oh my gosh.
but I got to announce the publishing of that book, The Witch and the Czar, actually on the day that she died.
Oh
It's
my
it's
gosh.
insane.
That is
Yeah.
wild.
But this is why the story's about ghosts too, is because I
Yeah.
feel like we still live with the ghosts of our
Hmm.
departed family, and I feel like it's just such an important concept for me, and kind of concept that I continue to study in my books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The other element that kind of comes in is Princess Olga and her
Yes.
brother as well, and they are the ones who are kind of trying to get answers
Hmm.
through the fortune tellers. And so they are loosely tied to like historical events as well.
Yes.
So what kind of research did you have to do? What was it like writing characters that are like tied to real historical like tragedies?
Yeah. Yeah, no. So when I started researching 1920s Paris, one of the things I found, I did find the existence of fortune tellers, and the Russian fortune tellers, Russian emigre fortune tellers. So that was a really cool thing to find. And
Yeah.
then, of course, there was, Paris really was the capital of the Russian emigre world. I mean, so these people went. So I guess I'll back up. And
Mhm.
people that were against the Soviet regime. So a lot of
Mhm.
times it was aristocrats, nobles. Sometimes it was former Romanovs, like my brother and sister are. Sometimes they're regular intellectuals, teachers,
Mhm.
professors. Some people in the army who were very, um, I guess, loyal to the czar, and
Mhm.
monarchy. So I mean, it was all kinds, and a lot of just regular people too. I mean, I know my great grandmother actually. They used to, I think, be farmers, and they owned the land, and they were actually evicted from their farm and their land by the Soviets, and they were regular people that obviously had no noble roots or upbringing or anything else, or even intellectual ones. And
Right.
so that's just an example of, it was a lot of people.
Mm.
that were displaced, that were exiled, that chose to leave. Kind of, a lot of that is happening now again as well. And
Yeah.
so, and a lot of them went everywhere. I mean, you
Mm.
see a lot in London, you see a lot in Toronto and New York were big ones, big locations, as well as different parts of Asia as well.
Mhm.
But a big capital was Paris. That's where they all went. Why?
Mhm.
Because it was familiar. They would go on trips to Paris before the
Oh.
revolution. They would, have houses there. They knew people there. They spoke
Mm.
French from the cradle. They knew the language. So a lot of them went to Paris, and including a lot of Romanovs. And it was even, as I found by doing this research, it was the unofficial emigre capital, Russian emigre capital of the world, where all these Romanovs were there and they would vie with each other for power
Mm.
because no one thought this was permanent. People thought they'd return to Russia and
Right.
the monarchy would return and they'd be the next, kind of czar or czarina or whatever. And
Mhm.
so, I kind of went about, doing a lot of like secondary research. Helen Rappaport is a genius. She's a British researcher that researches a lot of Russian history,
Oh, okay.
and she's just fantastic. So a lot of her research. She has a book out that's basically about Russian exiles living in Paris,
Oh, okay.
both before the revolution and after. So that was
Wow.
kind of the main source for me. And after that, I just kind of I found a lot of emigre writers, for example, like Nina
Mm.
Berberova. She's actually in the book as one of Baba Valya's clients. And she actually is a real author. And I read her work just to kind of get a sense of the emigre world. She would write a lot about, the Russian emigres and their life in Paris. And she actually eventually moved to the States. So very
Yeah.
interesting life there. But yeah, so I did a lot of the first person. I guess for primary research by reading actually authors, female
Yeah.
emigre authors that lived in Paris. So
Wow.
that was very fascinating. Yeah. Olga and Alec were based on real people, real Romanovs that were in Paris. They were trying to get their money back.
Mm.
They kept thinking that there was a fortune that was hidden in Paris for them, and then they actually left a bunch of their fortune in Russia. So actually, one of them was basically friends with Felix Yusupov, who, of course, famously was one of the murderers of Rasputin.
Mm.
And they went back to Russia to get their fortune. And I mean, it's this dangerous heist where they go back to one of their houses, unearth this fortune, run away. I mean, it's really the
Wow.
stuff of, you would think it's all fake, but
Yeah.
this stuff happened. And so I didn't need to make up a lot here. It's
Right.
all there in history, where these people, were desperate. They were in a new country, in a new world, where the monarchy has fallen, and they no longer have their houses. They no longer have their money.
Mhm.
They had to flee, and now they're in Paris and they're grasping to get
Right.
back to Russia, get back to being princesses and other royals,
Yeah.
get back to having power, and then of course get their fortunes back.
Definitely. It's I'm kind of laughing because the one other time I had this conversation, or what I'm about to say, was with an author called Olesya Liuzna, and
Hmm.
she wrote Glitter in the Dark, which
Oh
is like,
yes,
it's kind of like a noir in the 1940s, I think, in New
yes,
York.
yes. I remember that book. Yeah, it came
Yeah,
out a few
and
years ago, right?
I think it was like at the beginning of, or it was like at the end of
Okay,
2024, maybe.
okay.
I can't totally remember. Um, but I was having I didn't used to read very much historical fiction, and
Hmm.
then hers was kind of part of it, and so was The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali was actually
Yeah,
another one. Not that everyone needs to know what brought me to historical fiction, but
yeah.
when I was talking with Alessia about her book, I was like, I think there was this like archaic idea in my brain that like historical fiction wouldn't be as interesting, or
Hmm.
like less crazy things were happening. And it's like, of course that's not the case. And like,
Yeah,
of course people were making like rash decisions or greedy decisions or
yeah,
like corrupt decisions. Like, we're humans. We've been doing this whole time. And
yeah,
that's kind of what got me more into some historical fiction, where kind of what you said, I also like that it's putting me somewhere else. Like, I
yeah.
think when you read voraciously, it's fun to read in different cultures, or different cultures and different time periods. So I think I think it's easy to forget that like humans have been messy since we were a
Yes.
thing. So there's like always intrigue.
Absolutely. And I always laugh at reviews, speaking of reviews again, that I like, I don't believe this happened. It's like, well, yeah, it happened. And I always laugh too, because sometimes I'll put something in a book and my editor will be reading and she'll be like, I don't think we should do that because that never, like that's just not believable to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but it really happened.
Yeah.
And and she's like, really, but maybe we should just tone it down because people aren't going to believe it. But that's what's cool about historical fiction is
Yeah.
it's our imagination, yes, but the root of it is did happen. It is
Hmm.
based in history. And I just find that so cool how
Hmm.
we can really make those parallels to our
Hmm.
modern time, because the best historical fiction does that, right? It
Right.
really connects our present to our past.
Hmm.
And that's why it's a big theme of my work is how the past connect the present connects to the past.
Yeah, it's unavoidable.
Yes, it's
Whether
true.
you want to know the past, your
Yeah,
past or the world's past or not, like it
yeah,
still matters a lot.
yeah.
It kind of reminded me, well, this conversation is, I recently listened to Kindred by Octavia Butler, which
Hmm.
is, it's her novel of a woman in the 1970s who
Mm.
basically wakes up, or no, is just all of a sudden transported to essentially a plantation in the South in the
Oh my
1800s.
God. Oof.
But a big theme of the book is like even all the stuff she starts realizing about her ancestral past,
Yeah,
it's it all matters for her present, even though she didn't know all of the things, basically. So
exactly.
I really like narratives that do that, whether it's with
Exactly.
time travel or just going
Hmm. Hmm.
writing historical fiction, essentially.
That sounds fascinating. I'm definitely gonna have to put that on my list because
Yeah.
that sounds really good.
It's heavy. It's about slavery, so
Yeah, of course.
or there's a lot of that. So there's just that. That's just what I always tell people. And
Yeah.
she's kind of considered, like, that one was kind of considered the first neo slave narrative, like the first time
Hmm.
that fiction was really exploring it.
Hmm.
So there's just that to know going into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but with like with the seances and
Yeah.
with the kind of magical realism elements, which I hesitate to say too, because
Hmm.
when you were talking too about like finding out about that and how that stuff was even working for you, or she was telling your future,
Hmm.
I think it's really easy. I'm trying to figure out the kindest way to say this, but especially in America, and especially like if you're white and maybe Christian, it's
Hmm.
so easy to think of anything else as just like magical realism or mythology or whatever. So I feel like it's also kind of is real for some people,
Yeah.
but my whole circumventing there,
Yeah.
um, what was it like, kind of like, or researching the seances, or was it mostly just stuff that you remembered?
Yeah, no, I definitely researched the fortune telling
Hmm.
in the Slavic world was definitely something I researched. I found this really great a source. It's a lady I think in England that did a whole survey of fortune telling in Russian specifically. Uh, 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 Russian history. I think it was from 1750 to like early 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really fascinating for me to learn about just the different traditions and how they're also tied to a lot of literature. I know, like by famous Russian authors like Alexander Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, many others have those elements in their stories in their books. And so to find out the origins of some of those beliefs and traditions and my own beliefs and traditions that the women of my family, it turns out,
Yeah.
practiced, was a very intentional process in this book. And then spiritualism, I also studied just kind of the history of spiritualism, which was fascinating. I mean, I did not know. I mean, there's a couple books that have come out in the last couple years about, London Sand Society, for example, by Sarah Penner and a few others that really, explore that spiritualism, the height of spiritualism, which was 1850s, I think, London and America as well. And so that was really cool for me to find and to kind of marry the two, which I really wanted to do just because of the time period where I was in. The 1920s, I mean, we talked a little bit about this before, but it was a time where a lot of countries lost a lot of men, and this is including France and Russia. And
Mm-hmm.
so you had this I guess, um, um,
Like a
reinterest. Can I say that?
resurgence.
Yeah, resurgence. Yeah, in spiritualism. So
Mm.
people would do seances. They'd try to talk to disappeared loved ones, kind of like what I have in the book, where, oh, the soldier disappeared. We never heard from him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's summon him and see.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, or people were looking for family members. I mean, that was a big thing in the emigre world in Paris, where you had people that didn't know if their family in Russia survived. Maybe
Right.
they were separated during travel. Travel was very arduous from Russia to Paris. Okay,
Yeah.
it was through many countries like Constantinople at the time, like Asia, like Siberia. I mean, you really had to go around, sometimes the South. So you went through Crimea and the southern countries. So it was it was very different how people got away. And sometimes it would include getting lost,
Right.
getting separated. Maybe someone was sick and they didn't travel that day and they traveled
Mhm.
the next day, and did they find each other or not. So actually it was a big part of the Russian community at the time
Nice.
to have notices at the church that I describe, the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, which actually still exists in Paris. I visited it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Oh, so you have gone to Paris already.
Yes,
That was going to
yes,
be my
yes, I
follow-up. Like,
did. I
okay,
did.
good.
I made him go right away. Yeah, I decided on the book and I was like, here's the story. Let's
Oh,
go.
I
And
love
he's like,
that.
all right.
Good.
Of course I did. No, that was the first thing I
Yes.
did.
Oh, good.
Maybe a little too fast just because I didn't have everything, and I probably would have gone to more places had I known that
Yeah.
I would include them in the book. But
Yeah.
but I really wanted to go to Paris.
Good.
It was very fascinating research, and it really all like kind of came together in this book. Unlike the other ones I've written before or since, actually,
Hmm.
this story just came together. Like I just kind of knew what I wanted to write. It all came together, like historically,
Hmm.
folklore, fortune telling, spiritualism, and then,
Yeah.
oh, okay, my character, yeah, she's gonna talk to the dead. That's her talent. That's her goal. Because I
Hmm.
really wanted to include that aspect. It was just such
Yeah.
a fun part of fortune telling, and spiritual belief is
Right.
this idea of spiritualism and seances and talking to the dead. So yeah, no, it was really fascinating research. I didn't get bored once. I mean, it was just so
I bet.
so rich.
Yeah. That's what I just love. Man. I've been saying it too with nonfiction. Like one of the things that's been exciting for me getting into more nonfiction too is like just like so many other things, it's a genre with so many subgenres. So I think I always thought of it as one thing, and now I'm like, oh, sometimes it's just that someone got really excited about some subject matter and was like, let me write all of this information that I know, and I just like relate to that. And I also feel like when someone else is excited about a subject, you kind of end up excited with them too. So
Totally.
I think
Yeah,
that's fun. And it
totally.
includes fiction too, obviously.
Yeah, and I think, doing research research in a more recent time frame, just because. So my first book was medieval Russia. I mean, that was just as dry could get. I mean, except for the fairy tale research that I did for that book, because it had a witch at the center, Baba Yaga, a
Yeah.
malign Slavic witch, and like some gods research, some Slavic gods research. That was cool, but like everything else was just dry. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I decided to move forward in time. But yeah, this, the 1920s research that I did for The Haunting of Moscow House, my previous book, was just a little darker. It was just very depressing, just because it had to do with people that stayed in Russia during Soviet
Right.
times and dealt with the regime, and it was very dark, very it was COVID, it was pandemic. My
Ugh,
grandmother just died. It was just a
ugh,
very dark research
a
period
lot.
for me.
Yeah.
But this was just pure fun. Like the
That's
Fortune
good.
Tellers of Rue Daru, I was just having fun with it, researching Paris, going to Paris, researching fortune tellers, spiritualism. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and also researching, like, I guess, more alive research, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like even reading those novels and short
Mm.
stories and biographies of the women that were
Oh, yeah.
emigres living in Paris. That was very cool, because it
Yeah.
was so, yeah, it was just very relatable, I think, is the word.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. The other thing, and you're kind of touching on it, which it makes a lot of sense that it was like a lot of people were lost, or men, like you're saying, or died, or like all kinds of things were happening because of the current events, where like these people were still dying for a way to connect. Dying.
Yeah.
Words.
Great word.
They were yearning for the ability to
Yearning,
like
yes.
connect with people they didn't have
Yeah.
answers about. And so what I thought was kind of interesting, and I think Gothic literature kind of does this in general, but the book really does also kind of deal with grief and loss
Yeah.
and memories. And it kind of ties in so well to someone who's able to speak with the dead.
Yeah.
So were you kind of wanting to explore those subjects as well, with kind of through the spiritual parts or the seance parts?
Yeah, speaking to that, I mean, for sure. I mean, just talking about my grandmother, I mean,
Mhm.
it's interesting because I still sometimes I'm very fanciful when it comes when it comes to
Yeah.
nighttime, especially.
Mm.
And when I'm left alone, like with the
Yeah.
kids, my husband leaves for a work trip or whatever, and I'm
Uh-huh.
staying home with the kids, and I'm alive to every sound, and
Oh, yeah.
you don't understand, but what I who I picture seeing is my departed family.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Does it
But
make
and
it
I'm
less scary?
scared.
Oh,
No, I'm
you are.
scared.
You
I'm
are
really
scared.
scared. But then I try to tell myself, you know what? I would love to see my grandmother again. And I
Mm.
think if she would come back, I think she would come back to comfort me, because that's what she did my
Yeah.
whole life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think about that concept a lot, of what
Mm-hmm.
would these people be like if they came back and talked to us. So I think, like I said, I think about that a lot, and I've kind of always lived with portraits of my family. It's what
Mm.
my, especially dad's family, did. I was horrified of his flat in
Yeah.
Moscow, because my grandmother, my dad's mom, died at a like young age. Like I was just born and she died, and my grandfather just loved her so much,
Oh,
and he
man.
would put pictures of her
Everywhere.
and paintings of her, and he would speak to her as if she was alive.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was when I was 5 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that's
so
that's a lot.
so I've been living with this this concept of
Yeah.
speaking to the dead for a very long time. And
Right.
I think that was one of the things that I wanted to explore, both with my second book, The Haunting of Moscow House, and this one, but especially this one, is what if there's a person like Zena who
Mm-hmm.
is able to speak to the dead,
Right.
both for other people and for herself,
Mm-hmm.
and what would they say? And also, the other side of it is, what about the people that don't respond, such as her mom?
Mm.
Why aren't they responding? Why? I
Mm.
mean, are they gone? Are they at peace? Or are they trapped? Are they,
Right.
can they not speak for some reason? And I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's a fascinating concept too, is
Yes.
in studying spiritualism, especially who comes back, and why,
Hmm.
and who doesn't, and why. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was kind of another thing that like came up for me at least is kind of like fortune telling versus like it also could be so closely related to what we might call intuition, like
Yeah.
if you were looking at it that
Yeah.
way. And so it kind of like there's a logic even to it, even though it sounds kind of magical as well. So were you kind of like trying to like show both sides of that with the story too? Like sometimes it's maybe stuff that we just use different words for.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to be more realistic.
Mm,
I'm always in awe of authors that are able to write magical realism. It's a little
yeah.
secret, because I feel like I can't as much. I mean,
Yeah.
I just love practical magic, for example. Is
Right.
just, it's amazing. That whole series is amazing because
Yeah.
she does such a good job. The author does such a good job of really getting at the is it or isn't it, right?
Right.
And I feel like the movie definitely just kind of oversteps
Yeah.
and makes it more
It
magical.
kind of takes
But
on its own
yeah,
way.
yeah. But the books, especially the first one, when I read it, I was so surprised because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is magical realism at its finest because
Yeah.
it's is it or isn't it? And I feel like to me that's even more powerful. The other
Hmm.
example of that is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. I don't know if you read that one, but
No, but I hear
oh
people
my
love it.
God, that is probably the best piece of like modern Gothic fiction that I've ever read. It's
Okay.
incredible, because of that concept. So there's a ghost at this house. The doctor's the main character. He's kind of getting involved in the family of the house, and there's a ghost, or is it or isn't it? You
Right.
know, all of the evidence points to a ghost. All the
Yeah.
spooky happenings in the house points to the ghost, but
Yes.
we don't see it. And
Mm.
so I feel like for me, magical realism, whether it's magic or gothic ghosts, is just
Hmm.
very powerful because it's relatable, right?
Hmm.
It's anyone up at night thinking they hear a strange noise.
Hmm.
What is it? That's almost
Right.
scarier than seeing something, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's the fear related to it, and so I think that's why I really played with that concept. I don't know if I
Yeah.
succeeded because
I
I
did.
like I said, I feel like magical realism is so hard to nail down
Right.
because you're either writing fantasy or you're not. And I
Yeah.
think being in that middle is really challenging, but I think it's also
Yeah.
so rewarding because
Hmm.
it's more, I think to me, more relatable, more creepy, more eerie,
Oh
just
yeah.
more of everything that we
It's a
can
little more
identify with.
psychological too.
It's right. That's right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So if
that's
you kind
exactly
of
right.
if you like psychological suspense or thrillers, like
Yes,
then it kind of feels like that. But
exactly.
I completely, there is nothing scarier than when, similar to what you were saying, my husband travels for work every now and then. And like
Your
the dog,
dogs. Your
yes,
dogs. I knew it.
the dog, they just don't sleep through the night, especially the first 2 nights that he's gone. And it's like they're reacting to everything. And
Yes.
so she's like, "Are you talking about me?" And sometimes they just wait.
Yeah.
My Bruce will just stand in the bedroom door,
Yeah.
barking into the hallway, like just barking like he sees something, and I will get
That's
out of bed and turn lights on. I'm like, "There's nothing there."
leave the lights on. Leave
It's
the lights
terrible though. You would
on.
almost rather see something because you're like,
Yes.
"What is
Yes.
going on?"
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I see it with my daughter, with especially my
Mhm.
younger daughter now, who's like, she'll get up in the middle and she has like this sack on that she
Oh,
wears at night, and we have this camera. I'm like, oh my
uh-huh.
gosh, I hear her, I'll get like a notification from the
Yep.
camera that she's up. I look at the camera and she's just like standing at her crib, like in her crib, looking at the door. And I'm
Oh
just
my
like,
gosh.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, like what is happening?
Yes.
um,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
so I
trippy.
totally understand. Yeah, it's very trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Yes. Well, I obviously loved it. You can tell I had all
Oh,
kinds
thank
of
you so much.
questions. I feel like a lot more people are reading Gothic. It seems to kind of just like
I
everything
agree.
kind of come in waves. So if you've been loving the Frankenstein, what was the other big one that was Gothic? Well, Sinners was one that had it
Sinners
last
was
year too.
amazing. Oh,
Loved it. But
loved
if
it.
if you love Gothic, this is another really fun story that you should read. Is basically what I'm saying. But I do always ask, and it sounds like you may know this at the end, if there's anything you've read recently that you really loved, or because I know that's like a tricky question. Sometimes you're like, "What have I read?" Or is there something you like always recommend to people to read?
Yeah, so Saltwater, I just finished that, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
great one if you're into thrillers. It's not fantasy, it's not gothic, but it's just it's very eerie, and it takes
Yeah.
place in Capri, and so it's very like Italian drenched and
Yeah.
very immersive,
Mhm.
and a very dark family mystery at the center.
Mhm.
I'm right now I'm reading Dark Sisters by Christy DeMeester.
Oh,
I'm
so
loving
good.
it so far. That prologue is just
Oh, I
living in my
know.
mind.
Yes.
For those that don't know, it's about I think three generations of women,
Yep.
and they're connected by a curse. And so far, loving that.
Yes.
And then I just finished The Mad Wife, which I absolutely loved. Like that's
Yes.
five-star read from me.
Mhm.
Incredible. Again, not gothic, but kind of the trad wife motherhood kind of angle,
Mhm.
about a 1950s housewife and mother, and something traumatic happens to her that you don't know, and she just starts to lose it. And it
Yes.
just has such a brilliant view of motherhood, how tragedy transforms us,
Mhm.
and just about I think women, women and what we deal with, and it's just a wonderful, powerfully huge statement about societal expectations too on women, particularly
Mhm.
then and now
Yeah,
sadly as well.
I
I loved
know.
it.
It's wait, we're making progress, but then
But
you
then
switch back. Yeah,
exactly,
that
I mean,
one.
this is why I
Go
write
ahead.
about women.
Yes. It's
It's
ongoing.
because it's just, I think we need reminders that there were powerful women in history,
Mhm.
that they existed, that
Yeah.
they can yet exist, that we are powerful, and that we're
Yes.
strong, and that we're stronger together. I think that's what
Yeah.
the point of this book is.
That's same thing for me with historical fiction. That's I'm so I respect so many women who are
Yeah,
doing things when it was still harder to do than it is now, essentially. So
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
with you on that. Well, as of the day that this is airing, you guys can all go get the book. So you better go get it. But thank you so much for talking with me about it.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. You had the most amazing questions. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you.